straight. No, contact.
Hold the line.
5, 2, 3, 9. Yep, direct take, keep firing.
Oh man.
Okay, now we are back, and it's really funny because Dark probably just parked inside of the actual stream here. So without further ado, let me just introduce him. Go ahead, Dark.
Wait, I'm introducing myself?
Yeah, I'm introducing you. So tell us how it is to be late to a stream, or almost late. Let's not be mad.
I am absolutely lost on what the hell you're talking about right now. Okay,
The stream.
I just had a 2-hour drive. I don't need to hear your damn BS. Okay, I almost got ran over off the road like 3 times, dude.
Okay, well, that's the orc. You probably recognize them. So let's move on to Mr. Avitus. Say hi.
Praise Callahan brothers.
Our usual special guest Kaz here is a bit preoccupied, but he's gonna be back. So bear with me for a second here. But until Kaz comes back and he gets to say hi, I have another very special guest. I want you guys to welcome for the first time on stream here. And this was a long time in the making. It's PressCorps' very own Geoffrey. Geoffrey, say hi.
Hello. Yes. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. So honored to finally be on this awesome podcast. It's such a distinguished group of gentlemen here in the room with me. It's gonna be a good one. I'm not quite sure. I haven't participated in the dev branch so far. I've been busy with a lot of moving things aside in real life in anticipation for this Wednesday. But it's what I'm seeing is looking good. Commend the 82DK for their awesome testing on that howitzer video that they did. Very helpful, I'm sure. And just very, very excited for stuff that's coming up. Getting the PressCorps in order. We've been on a long hiatus, but long kind of hibernation.
I'm looking
and I
forward
think a lot
to
of other groups too. So yeah,
I'm looking forward to some of the stuff that you're going to do with the new update.
hmm
Yeah, I think everybody's excited because I know a lot of people are coming back once again, as it's tradition here in Foxhole. So
right.
everybody's looking forward to this first war, which is probably going to be huge.
Everybody's wanting that War 19 again. With that big leap up in technology. You get that War 19 vibes again.
Oh god,
Yeah.
It feels like we were like, it feels like it's ages ago, right? It feels like it was in the
A
childhood.
lifetime ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like a lifetime ago.
It's the pioneer days.
I mean, a lot of stuff's happened between in the past 2 years, both in Foxhole and outside of Foxhole. So
Yeah.
I think it does feel like that long.
When you've been playing the game for as long as we have, it all sort of blends together, and you're not sure what was updated when, and it all gets very confusing.
Right. Let's just jump here. I know current war might not be really correct from a technical point of view because the current war is done. But I like to keep the tradition of discussing about it. Although for War 70, there's not much we can really tell you about it. Most of us didn't play on it at all.
Wait, there's a war going on right now? I thought it was just a massive skirmish going on.
No, actually, it finished. I think today, Dark. The war finished. From what I understand, the Colonials did a huge operation to finish it.
Oh, well done! Got to give them
I'm
something.
glad. I mean, no one was home, but I'm glad they raided that house.
Yeah,
I love the posts. I think there was a Reddit post. I was like, "Why are you trying so hard? Like, this war doesn't matter." I was like, "Yeah, sure. Why are you playing the game? Why?
Yeah, I mean,
Why are you using the features that are in the game right now?"
regardless, it's a victory is a victory, and I'm sure it'll go on their tally. So they can,
Yeah, I mean,
they're slowly catching us up, ever so slowly.
Well,
What is the tally? What is the tally now? Sorry, real quick.
What's the gap now?
I need to check, to be honest. I think it was closer than ever, right? I think it was in the ballpark of 5-ish wars, I want to say. I don't know exactly. I'm not gonna lie, because I generally used the HQ tool to check for that, but since it went belly up, you can't. I think Foxhole stats might have something similar, but I never figured it out.
Someone linked me a list of the past, like, I don't know, 20 wars a couple of weeks ago, and more like it was like big warden streaks, and then it made a couple of colonial victories, and then big warden streaks. So I'm not sure what the gap is, but from the chart it looks pretty big.
I've got the link here. It's 38 to 31. It looks like.
So 6. Yeah.
Perfect moment to come back.
Not that bad.
Yeah, I got you. I'll put it here in. I think this link's correct, but I'll put it in the No Man's Land chat.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's pretty balanced, because it's funny because both factions take turns to say, we're on the back foot, we're, we're being oppressed, and then in the end, it turns out it's not that unbalanced overall.
It's just, when you're shooting the shit about the game, you're obviously going to highlight the fact that you've won more than the other team.
Well, yeah, that's always going to be a go ahead there.
Oh, thank you. It's like when you go into the meat and potatoes of every win, though, it's like you have some wars that people are taking breaks on both either or side, and a lot of certain metas that were favorable to one side versus the other. It was definitely win or lose. Personally, I like that that one side has more wins than the other, but it really doesn't to me, doesn't really mean that much.
It doesn't add up. Yeah.
If it was like 40 to 20, then I think there's an issue. You get me? Like the fact that we're at least in the same 30 decimal is like that's pretty good. That means things are roughly, in a sense, where they should be at as far as that's concerned.
I think that it's more on a personal level, isn't it? That like how many wars you feel like you've won on a personal level, because if you've taken breaks from the game, then the wars that you didn't take part in, as far as you know, didn't happen. You know what I mean? So if you're coming to the game and you're playing and you're winning the war for your team, and then you're taking a 3 months break and coming back and winning another war, then you're obviously going to think that only one side is winning, when in reality it's different.
Yeah, well, I will make the argument because I know this is a known argument, so I'll bring it up for the ones that are really, insist on it, that this balance was sort of artificially achieved by having, a small intervention when one faction was getting the upper hand too often, right? With the introduction of some sort of mechanic vehicle or whatever else to tip the balance on the other side a bit.
That's happened both ways, by the way.
Yeah,
Side getting all that. It's both ways that's happened.
But I think the real controversy is over of how obvious was it or how intentional it was, right? Because it's hard to debate if something was on purpose or the development cycle just got there and the thing got introduced and that thing sparked this, natural sort of evolution of the meta, let's call it like that. Right. So on the actual war, I don't think we can talk much because, like I said, we didn't play. I think it's important we at least acknowledged, it ended. Thank God. Nobody wanted more of that, I think.
Now to the actual war. That's going to matter.
Yeah, I'm just happy we didn't have another war between the wars. That would have been even more awful. So that was a good thing. Let's probably move shortly towards the left branch. I know most of us didn't play a lot of it. I used the word tweaks here, and I'm mostly referring to what Mark posted, because they posted some updates, right? Let me grab them real quick. Maybe we can talk a bit about.
Well, you're pulling.
You might like some. I think he's just going to go in the Foxhole Discord and go in the dev branch info. The most recent one, I think you may enjoy a lot more.
Yeah, I noticed the actual change on the vehicles. Basically, for those of you who didn't know, but most of you probably already do know and know more than we know. The vehicles initially were intended to freeze, right? And it wouldn't matter if the engine was running or if the vehicle was like running, going down the road or anything like that. And now Mark announced that if the engine is running, if a driver exists in the vehicle, then it's not going to freeze anymore.
That's good. That's very good. Yeah, I
That's
like that.
yeah, same here. It's good to hear that like Razer made a very vivid Reddit post regarding the whole thing, and I'm glad that they, as quickly as that post was made, they reacted and properly fixed the snow mechanic, at least for the vehicle aspect. I think that both combat and logi players will appreciate that.
Instead of the region becoming uninhabitable of vehicles, now it just becomes, you run a risk of really, having this extra layer of risk to, pushing an armored column into a region. If your driver gets out of the tank or for whatever reason, there's a real possibility of that vehicle freezing. It's going to be a little bit interesting to see how it's implemented. Like, is there a time delay after the driver gets out? Can he not get out at all? If he gets out, does the vehicle instantly freeze? These are all things that we're going to have to find out in gameplay. But it's heartening to know that we're not going to have to line all of the roads with bonfires.
That reminds me, actually, remember when I call them hallway fights, where the meta was to protect logistics routes. You would build walls, thin walls
Yeah.
on both sides of the road, and then the fight would just be these massive meat grinders of just people fighting in the thin hallway. I'm glad we're not doing that with fire now.
Yeah, it was a nightmare logistically speaking. I feel like, especially with border travel, and I was just imagining, the map is full, the driver's at the border, he needs now to make a fire there and just sit by it with the truck, waiting, hoping there's no partisans coming in. Although you can debate that even the partisans are going to have a very hard time of getting to the logistics.
I mean, with the whole freeze mechanic, they're really looking to slow the gameplay down, aren't they? In a big way. Like, trench combat's going to be a lot more. I mean, we're going to have to see how it plays out, but I mean, it's going to be a lot more stalemate-y, I think. Especially like there's a storm blowing in. You don't really want to send your infantry out in no man's land to attack the enemy trenches because they're just going to freeze to death. You know what I mean? So you're gonna find that when storms are on, like, enemy infantry, your own infantry are just going to be sitting around in their own trenches waiting for it to end, more than likely.
And
now,
Go
is
ahead.
that a good thing or a bad thing for you, gentlemen? What are your thoughts on that?
So for me personally, I think it's a good thing. Now, my reasoning for that is probably going to make a few people laugh, but it allows you to have those times where you can build up, you can do a little bit of role playing in the trenches and stuff like that as you're waiting for the enemy to come out the blizzard, or for the blizzard to end or something like that. You're building campfires. The only thing about it is, how long is that going to go on for before it gets old? You know what I mean? And how long are these storms going to last? Because if I come home, like, I'm just going to give you an example. Average dude coming home from work, had a long shift, and he's going to come on his favorite game, Foxhole, to have some fun on that for the couple of hours that he gets every day to himself. Okay, he comes on the game and there's a blizzard going on the front, and it lasts until he has to go to bed. You know what I mean? That's not really, a good thing. So for people that pump a lot of hours in and you want to see different environments and different things going on in the game, it's great. It's just about, like, in those specific circumstances where people only get a couple of hours and the storms are lasting like 24 hours, it might really lessen the experience for those people that only get small amounts of time.
So my opinion on this shouldn't be too surprising. I think I made that pretty clear last time. So I will acknowledge first that the debilitation to vehicles was definitely worse than it was for infantry. And so I'm glad to see that was addressed, because that would have been so paralyzing and crippling the game would not work, in my opinion. Like, it genuinely would not work. For the infantry, it is still a net a big net loss in my opinion. For some people, it's going to be more of a net loss than others for some of the reasons that Avidus mentioned. But I think it comes back to Razor's post that he made on Reddit, and I like what he said about it. Comes back to timers, time wasters. And if you want to know what this looks and feels like, look no further than what we experience sometimes in night cycles when we have to pause our operations objectives to wait on a night cycle because the operational environment isn't conducive to move forward at night because we need armor to push. And infantry can't push without the armor. Therefore, infantry is stuck just as much as armor is, trying to come up with something creative to do to keep the guys busy. At least in those circumstances, we can send people out to their deaths skirmishing with colonials. I don't want to send my guys out to their deaths to freeze to death. That's just stupid. And I don't want to send them around campfires sitting kumbaya. We may be able to set them loose on CE, but then Drax's going to kill us because you know how well the infantry build. You give them a hammer and some BMATs, and they're going to just they're going to scuff up any defensive plan that those guys got. And so it's really a bad situation. Overwhelmingly negative. Still overwhelmingly negative. Better than it was, but overwhelmingly negative.
It's going to be one of those things that like looks good on paper, but in practice is going to like fail miserably. You know what I mean? And it's not like, see, when I try and look at these situations, it's not just about our progress. You have to look at like the average people that are playing this game. You know what I mean? Like the experience for them is going to be absolutely hellish. If it's bad for us, it's going to be absolutely hellish for the average player. You know what I mean? So I'm just, again, we haven't played through it yet, so I'm predicting.
We're speculating.
We're speculating. I mean, but you know, we're going to have to play it to see how it runs and how it turns out. But like the reasons that I've stated, they're going to have, you know, going to add some flavor and things like that, and it's going to be, you know, nice to look at aesthetically. But I think for all of the reasons that Kaz brought up there, it's probably going to not be a good thing overall.
So I sort of sorry, Dark, didn't mean to catch up.
I was gonna say, please don't forget, I'm also here.
No. I always
on the opposite end of this spectrum. I feel like because I try to balance my like what's the word, my competitive side with my roleplay side when I enjoy games, because if a game can get me immersed, I'll be more to enjoy it. If I could roleplay in a game, then I know the game really got me hooked in. And the current of the update, it's like I understand everyone's competitive nature to want to excel and perform, you know, and with all these updates, you know, essentially ruining the competitive nature, making things slow. I still enjoy everything that's coming out so far, divided by the mixed signals, but I'm looking forward to the new update.
My bottom line on this thing with the sitting in the trenches, like I said, it sort of goes back to my initial point of timers, and also what happens when you introduce those timers, right? Because like some people are gonna empathize with what Avitus said and be like, yeah, we want to sit in a trench and like, you know, do some trash talk and talk some trash about colonials and have a bit of fun between ourselves. You know, that might be getting old or not, but the main bulk of people that play this game because, you know, they want to play the game, you know what they're going to do, right? They're just going to switch regions as fast as they possibly can. That's what's going to happen. So you're going to have these scenarios in which you're going to have these maps that nobody is on, especially if they don't do something about the logistics aspect of the freeze, right? If the logistics player is going to have a really hard time in these weather conditions, they will avoid those maps. If the combat players are going to have a bad time infantry-wise, they're going to avoid these maps. So you're basically creating these bubbles that will have zero population, and you're going to be overcrowding every other place on the map that has no weather conditions. Is my take on it.
The way that they worded it, from what I can remember, is that they said they enter in a value at the start of the war, and that value will produce storms or different weather effects over the course of the war. Now, my worry is that there's going to be some very suspect weather events that happen just as certain events are happening in like military terms. So, for instance, if one side is pushing the other too hard, then there might be a very suspect, blizzard in the middle of summer. You know what I mean? So, and I think that they need to be very, like, I hope that isn't the case. Like, I hope that they haven't implemented this whole thing so they can just be like, right, this war is going too quickly, let's stick in a weather event. I hope that's not the case. I hope it's randomized, because I think they need to be very, very careful if that's their intention, because that's going to create a hell of a lot of unnecessary drama, in my opinion, within the
I
community.
thought, and you might know more about this than I do. I thought they mentioned that they're going to lay out like, here's the weather for 600 days of, or 1,000 days of war, and it'll never reach that far, probably. But then, here's how it'll happen, so that theoretically they can't mess with it. Now, of course, they could probably just go and start doing surgery in terms of let's just throw in a snowstorm here. They absolutely can do that, I'm sure. But I thought the intention was that, all right, here's how it's going to be for 1,000 days, and then that's just how it's going to play out. If it happens to be smack dab in the middle of an operation, that's not on us technically.
Yeah.
That's
I hope
not the
that's the case.
randomizer.
I hope that's the case, dude. I really do.
Mhm.
I just have a feeling that if it it starts happening on a regular basis, if storms start cropping up as one side's pushing the other, then it's going to be, and then it'll become a conspiracy, and then it'll like get out of control. I know how it gets in the community. You know what I mean? So I think that, like, just keep it random as much as possible. Never, unless it's like, I can't think of any scenario in which they should enter their own weather values as a war's going on, in my opinion.
Well, here's the thing, and I know it's a controversial thing, but for most of us, we live with the conviction that the devs are doing everything in their power to make these wars longer and longer, right? And
Yeah.
the main problem I have with it, and I always have with it, is they are doing it using all sorts of creative mechanics that I like, but the problem is the longevity of a war never depended on all of these mechanics they're tweaking or adding. The longevity of the war is always dependent on the morale of the people playing it, right? And there's no actual mechanic to fix the morale of people. It doesn't matter how much you try and delay a faction if the other faction is just like, nope, we're not going to show up to the fight anymore. There's nothing you can resolve that with.
I mean, the problem that we have with this update is, yeah, you're correct in saying that there's been updates in the past that have drastically slowed down or attempted to slow down wars by adding in different things, but never before in the history of Foxhole have they attempted to slow war down this much. Like, just with the information that we have so far, we know that it's going to be, the wars are going to be significantly longer because of these changes. I mean, I know we haven't brought up artillery yet, but I won't delve too much into it, but just by the way that artillery works now, it's not going to be the standard doctrine that we've used since the inception of Foxhole. Destroy as much defenses as possible, get the artillery gun in position, take out the town hall, wait the 10 minutes, go in and destroy the rest. That's been that's been the basic baseline doctrine since day one, since we started playing. And that's completely going out the window with this update. So I'm not sure how things are going to progress, but one thing is for certain: wars are going to last significantly longer because of this, and gains are going to be significantly smaller as well.
Another very interesting change I think we should at least visit before we dive into arty and such. There's a very interesting modification on the Warden AT truck. The range is increased to 45 meters. It should be said that it comes after a feedback post from Shiv, a very well crafted feedback post for that matter, that goes into detail about why the half track should have 45 meter range. And I'm very shocked that this happened, to be honest. I saw the post, I read it, I was like, yeah, great job, Shiv, but I wasn't expecting them to actually change it. So from this point of view, from what I've been seeing on the front of small changes they've been implementing because people did good posts on them, that gives me a bit more positivity this time around than usual. Because we were discussing even before the stream that how nice it is to see Mark posting all of this information constantly, right? And constantly updating us, like we've been doing this, we've been doing that, we took that, we changed that. It finally feels like you're getting updated in a meaningful way constantly, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not willing to get my hopes up yet, but let's hope they've drawn a line in the sand with this update, and let's hope that things are going to be different from now on, and this is going to continue. But like I say, it's going to take a while for me to build my hopes up.
I'll retain my pessimism, but I'm still grateful to see that it's better than it's been. For sure, I have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, blind in the snow. So I should say you gentlemen are like review. I love it. You're reviewing how the update actually goes, and like how the lead into it. Should be noted that I don't have room for pessimism because I don't. I just don't have I don't have time for the dev branch, sadly. And you guys bring like the whole a whole gang of 82 DK gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, into the whole fray, and I gotta commend you into it for it again. You're doing the testing for a lot of us, pre-testing for the testing.
It was very. I feel like I'm glad we got to fit the time to get that testing done, because it was very crucial that the current state of how they made the artillery, and it looked like the devs were getting a lot of mixed signals on, was it underpowered, was it overpowered, and that's the thing is with an RNG system is you get feedback literally just like that. And I'm glad that Kaz had the idea to rally everyone to have a big op to literally just test artillery, and hopefully it produces good numbers that the devs can use.
And I don't wanna introduce a segue here. I'll keep it for later, but I'm gonna just like tease it a bit. On your point, Geoffrey, this is why I've been extremely disappointed by this shift where testing has become. Well, I appreciate that it's collectively done and such, but I've noticed, especially on your last talk with Julian, right? When Julian was telling us, he basically was brought up into a test because they literally didn't have enough people to do it. That I was very disappointed to hear that, because there's so many people that have everything you'd ever need to help with that. There's so many people.
I think with that specific testing he was talking about, I think he was talking, well, I need to review the footage, but I think he might have been talking about literally, does this fire? Like, can we just test to see how this fire, how does this work on the other end? And I'm not sure if that's, I don't know if that's necessary for players to necessarily be a part of.
At least from what I remember and what I saw on the stream, it just felt like an overall test of artillery because for firing, you basically need like 2 people. But I think they were just legit trying to shoot it and see where it lands and whatever, like stuff like that. The problem is, and this is why it sort of changed, and we're going to lean into the artillery test, is what the test determined is, from a balance point of view, things don't make sense. And this is where I think because it always goes back to that closed testing, if you remember it, that server that was dedicated to closed testing, and there was like, I don't know, probably around 50 people, I think, from the community in there, probably upwards max to 100, let's say. I don't know the exact numbers, but the tests there were never properly done. Like it was mostly a social event than actual testing.
Yeah.
And it was
that's what you want to avoid, but I guess I don't know if that was encouraged.
No, you see, the problem was, and I do appreciate it in their Canadian way, that they weren't trying to get people to just tell guys, shut up, let's do the test, stop fucking around, right? I can appreciate that about them.
At the same time, I kind of would like that.
Exactly. That's my thing. Like, the way I would see these tests would be, right, let's put together some people from this community that we know they can be mature about it, and look at it as a project, not as we're gonna go there and have some fun and shoot some stuff, right? Look at it as a project. We go in there, we do the testing. If time permits afterwards, we're gonna screw around and shoot each other or whatever later, right?
I just want to like from day one of me joining 82 DK, it's always been a thing that we've never shied away. If we were asked for help, we would provide it. You know what I mean? Without any question. And we'd always provide constructive feedback. But I just feel that it's never really been asked for in any capacity.
Well, it's a bit hard to ask them to ask for our help, because I can see how that would be difficult for,
Don't want to have any
exactly, like,
favoritism in a way.
and then people can say, oh, you're playing, like you like Wardensmore because you ask them to do stuff, and
Oh God.
and,
I don't know.
but
I wouldn't think of it like in that childish way. But,
no, I know, but in my opinion, it should just go down to just having instead of inviting people because you like them, because they're moderators, because they have other friends that invited them, just invite a small group of people that is willing to do the work on a serious level, right? And just do it with them. It doesn't have to be public. Like, most people know how to shut up about stuff like this. This is just how I see things. I know probably this is never going to happen, but I can dream of having some sort of, because like I know what they're missing right now, right? They talk about it constantly. They talk about not having the capacity to do the testing to a scale where they can see how it would look in the actual game.
So that's the thing about Foxhole, is it's like everything pretty much at like there's most of the game, in order for you to test it, needs to be done on a large scale. Even like a frontline battle where you want to test out a certain bit of equipment needs to be done on a large scale where you're going to see an active front line. It can't be done with like 5 people on a private server, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do think it's not too far-fetched to determine something like that. It doesn't have to be about 82DK. It has to be about a group of players that you connect with in the community.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, can that come from partially 82DK? Maybe that comes from more than Unity Hub. Maybe it comes from more military and a combination of colonial coalitions that are organized, and you get a group of mature players that kind of come together for this work. There is community work that can be done to enable that doesn't have to be partisan or partial to any group or controversial. This is very achievable.
Yeah. Also, and I'm not trying to say this was the definite outlier for why they stopped the private testing. Was there were they had so many people involved in that closed testing, is that leaks were being rumored out, and I feel like personally they felt some type of way knowing some of these things, that what started off as only private and trusted members of the community would be invited in, and it got so big, and them being kind, a lot of their rumored or things they wanted to keep hush kind of were leaked out. I think I recall BTs were leaked and other hidden vehicles were leaked, and people were
I don't want to do another segue, so I'll come back to it later. I already noted, but I never understood the secrecy around what's it can. I want to discuss that later with you guys. But for now, Dark, if you don't mind taking us a bit in the arty test, if you can tell us a bit about it.
Okay, well, so yesterday, but Kaz held one of our clan's weekly ops for the dev branch test to get hard critical feedback numbers on artillery. And those of you who may or may not be in the loop, artillery was just recently reworked and changed significantly, no longer becoming that 100% accurate sniper rifle, more so a representation of how artillery would actually be used for that time period. So by that meaning, like, you don't have an artillery gun that has 100 shells inside. You only have one. You got to load in, fire, and the shell will be AoE spread it across. So there's no such thing as accuracy no more. Right now on the screen, you'll see like a result on one of the testing. We have some of our members build a bunker base, and the other end just firing shells with different parameters set up to do the testing. Now, most of it was as expected. On an unfortunate note, Kaz, you want to read the numbers out?
Yeah. Let me pull them real quick from after action here. But we obviously we did a variety of tests that tested the 120s and the 150s, and I'm trying to keep my mind open to a different way of looking at artillery. So before I kind of start reading these numbers, keep in mind I'm looking at these numbers with the prejudice of already having a role in my mind because of the, it being really the only answer to a variety of things. And so, so just real quickly to rattle some of these off. The first test we did was 120 millimeter shells against tier 2. We did a three shell battery, or a 3 battery, and then a 5 battery. And what you'll see if you were to watch this long enough is that the defenders here, they might lose like a 1-by-1 garrisoner here or there, but they have a very comfortable time defending a barrage of between 75 and then up to over 130, 120 millimeter shells crashing down on their heads. And this is, probably about 5 to 10 combat engineers rolling around at any given moment, repairing things and kind of QRFing damage that's coming through. And they very comfortably weather this assault, especially for the number of shells that when you think about the number of shells, the number of preparation that the attackers have to bring to bear here, it's almost embarrassing to see the lack of impact it has for the cost that's put into this. On a interesting note, we did switch to 150s, and most of our testing unexpectedly did spend time with 150s because our experiment with the 120s left most of us going, this is pretty disappointing. So we didn't even test 120s against concrete bunkers. So we moved the 150s in, and the 150s actually did an exceptional job of dealing with tier 2, thankfully. But even then, they were able to, after about 75 shells, to deal with a tier 2 bunker. But that's 75 very expensive shells from very expensive guns to deal with a tier 2 bunker complex. So yes, you can do it, but at what cost? And then the 150s, this is probably the most horrifying piece. The 150s against a concrete bunker base, in the latter part of our testing, it was, I think we got maybe a 1-by-1 against active defenders, and then we just tested it to see how many shells it would take if nobody was defending. So if we took 5, and this is 5, okay, 5 very expensive 150 millimeter cannons and fired shells at it, how long would it take for us to PvE something if the colonials are asleep at the wheel? And it took us about, I think the count was around 200 shells to deal with an undefended concrete bunker base with these 150s, which is, in my opinion, the better part of insane. Like that's crazy to me that's what we were having to bring to bear, and just not worth it, from my opinion, just not worth it. But those are the numbers. Go ahead, Dirk.
Right, and I'll let you go, Avidus. I'll let you go.
I mean, just from the numbers that you've just read out there, like the cost in manpower to actually, you'd have to double the battery size to even make an impact, wouldn't you? Like you'd obviously need to pump the same amount of shells, but as soon as you add even a couple of defenders to something like a concrete bunker base, it's just not going to go down.
And here's the counter argument that Dark has, and I'd love for Dark to, because I think Dark is the person that sees the rosy side of this that I'm trying to open my mind up to. But you have to change the way you look at this, I think. Go ahead, Dark.
Just following up on Kaz, it's hard to directly look at this and not cringe because of how good artillery has been for the past 3 or 4 years. It's been an accurate sniper rifle capable of destroying everything you see on there, doing it fast and efficient. And from it going from that to this, on my head, it takes all the stress that I was normally tasked to as the artillery leader for our clan, because all those parameters are basically my job to make sure they're destroyed, so that way our elements of our clan can continue to push in. And with this, I don't have to worry about this exact spot, that exact spot, sniping this. All I have to worry about essentially now is a grid coordinate. And unfortunately, the whole community as a whole needs to, essentially change to how artillery really is, kind of like how it was back then in that time period. Because to me, to only get a full scale destruction like that, I mean, like in World War II, you would have to bring a ton of guns. And I'm not trying to say like we need like 100 Howie gun line, but it's just like, I don't, like me personally, I feel like I have no real struggle with it. I feel like this is getting almost near to how I pretty much envisioned it. I feel like there's certain tweaks we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I won't shy from is when I originally pitched my rework towards the devs, it was in conjunction with one thing that pretty much ties this whole rework together, that makes it work, and it's the repair mechanic needs to be tweaked. It needs to be rebalanced, because if you have people defending and able to repair it while something is being shelled, nothing essentially will go down. The Amish phase in this game has always been strong, and like just simply, a guy with a pack of BMATs can outdo a lot of work versus people who gathered all other types of resources. And it's just, fine tweaking here and there is what it really needs. But it's crucial that we need to tackle the real problem. For a lot of the game's balance really is just the repair mechanic. That alone.
Timer.
Well, I want to highlight Drak's suggestion because Drak, and I saw another person, I don't remember who it was, post it in FOD as well. But the idea that suppressed structures cannot be repaired, I think, is an awesome possible solution, or some iteration of that is, I think, a step is something worth exploring. I thought that was probably the best suggestion I've heard to date of a way to start to rein in the power of repairs.
I have it. I'm just going back to my document right now because I had it. Literally, it was a debuff when artillery was striking upon garrison structures. Trying to see if I can find it real quick.
And we know the devs like hold on to their weird reasons for why. Would there be like what's the in-universe reason as to why you can't repair something under fire?
So
I don't care about that.
I know you don't.
What
that's
I had
like low priority anything. Well, he's bringing it up.
On the update, I had it called Under Siege, which is when artillery fires upon structures, they become disabled and prevent them from being repaired for a set amount of time. So whenever an artillery piece fires on a structure, there would be a timer set, and the timer would be refreshed whenever another piece of artillery would splash anywhere near it. So the whole point was to provoke, instead of just sitting around and repairing, actually try to deal with the threat. Because to me, that's more engaging versus, oh, okay, I'm going to grab a bunch of BMATs and just repair the structure. Yeah, and given currently the meta's too strong.
And hear this out. Like, you could keep artillery damage small in that environment, right? You could keep the damage values low because then you can whittle away at defenses and you can take 150 shells and bring something down to 20%. And because it's not being actively repaired, then your other elements can come in and finish the job. The arty can be used to soften the defense. It encourages combined arms. It forces the defenders to have to engage with the attacking forces. From a gameplay loop perspective, it's awesome. I think it allows you to keep the damage values conservative. It helps against the PvE element of the game significantly because PvE doesn't give you the same advantage that it once did. Just so many benefits to something like that, something akin to that.
I feel like to your point, Geoffrey, the only explanation I ever was able to find to why the Amish syndrome is still in the game is simply because they don't want players to be able to deal with defenses easily. So, because that's the wild card, right? That's the wild card that keeps defenses in place, right? If there's enough people there with hammer, almost anything can stay up, unless you put an insane amount of firepower onto it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like my frustration with it is I can understand that point of view, but why not bring it down a bit, right? Like, be less effective on repairing when you're under arty fire. I'm not saying, although I do agree with Dark, not being able to repair them at all would make way more sense, right? But you don't want that, right? You don't want it because you don't want it to be too easy to remove defenses, right? Then just make it harder, because even from a logical point of view, right? If you're under fire by artillery, it's going to be harder for you to repair something, right? Even I know a lot of people suggested even the shell shock aspect of it, add the shell shock aspect of it into it, and just say, these buildings are under shell shock and people cannot repair. They repair them at maybe half, right? Like, instead of being 100% efficient in repairing something, you're 50% efficient on repairs, right? Maybe that. I'm just spitballing something.
No, that's a good point, because I have a hard enough time hammering a nail in a well air-conditioned room as it is. So, yeah.
But think of the benefits to other forms of suppression as well, right? If it was tied to suppression, then you can have heavy machine guns suppressing defenses and people closing in you get some benefit that's outside of arty. It helps the entire siege meta because the entire siege meta is in need of help. Okay, as the infantry guy that is commanding men to run headfirst in with HE grenades for 45 minutes at a time, that sucks. We got to do something better.
And
if you implement that, it almost sounds like it doesn't even matter. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't really matter how weak the howitzer is.
yeah,
No, it doesn't.
If you pair it, if you pair it with an offensive,
there's a number of things that bunkers have that need to be fixed and reworked. Like on pair with the repair mechanic change, and I've always kept preaching this. If they can just look how bunker AI segments work, and give those ones that have rifle garrisons separate HP pool versus the actual core structure, it could lead to a lot more better engagements in general. Because right now, if you have to attack a 3x2, with like 2 rifle garrisons and an AT and a tank turret, it is like infantry can only drool if they can even get close to killing that. Because the amount of effort and satchels and whatnot, it leaves just let artillery handle it, because infantry doesn't want to do anything with that. They're like, the cost to take, even to an extent, tier 2 with that same setup is significantly large. And if they were to separate the health pool for the AI garrisons and the actual core structures, I think personally it could lead to even better engagements where, guess what, we can finally have engagements in the bunkers themselves versus just the flat texture that it is just basically a decorative open field when they're finally destroyed.
Plus, from a logical point of view, if you think about it, when you attack a bunker, you don't just collapse the entire thing down. That's not how they did it in World War One, did they? They just created a breach inside of the bunker, and then soldiers just poured through that breach and tried to conquer the. I know Avitus is a big fan of this one, so take it away, Avitus.
Yeah. So the coolest, I think everyone will agree, the coolest environment to play infantry in Foxhole at the moment is either urban combat, or in the very rare circumstance you actually get to fight in trenches in a viable situation. Like it's very rare to find a situation where you can fight in trenches that's viable. So it's like, if you can remove the ability of, say, for instance, rifle garrisons to just annihilate your men in a trench as soon as they're fighting in there, then I think that will go a long way to improving infantry combat when it comes to trenches. Because at the moment, it just tends to come down to, you rush a trench, you find there's a rifle garrison guarding that line, and then you're pretty much knacked because the infantry can't deal with that. But if you're running in and you've got artillery support as well suppressing those structures, then it makes that base a viable location for infantry combat, and it makes it like, so the defenders have to organize themselves down trenches to ensure that the enemy don't push down the trench, and things like that. And I think that is really what is missing from trench combat at the moment. Like it needs to be wider scale, and more viable to fight in a trench, to actually take a concrete structure that's taken someone weeks to build. It should have significance of infantry, storming different layers of the defense, and gradually getting further and further in. And with everything that's happened with artillery in this update has basically paved the way for the repair lockout to be a thing, and suppression of structures with artillery to be a thing. And I really hope that it's something that they consider in the future, because it'll open so many doors, and it'll just, even when it comes down to things like how big the battery of artillery needs to be, you no longer have to throw, it's all well and good for us to throw 10, 15, 20 guys at artillery, but normal clans, random players, they don't have that luxury. So if you then make the repair lockout a thing, you can reduce that battery down to 2 guns, and it's still going to be effective in its role. And
Exactly.
I think that,
it provides suppression, and what we're looking for is ultimately to buff heavy populated fronts without buffing PvE activities, and this does that. And to Alderler's point, I think there is some concern. If you see, he brings up the point that the base health of defenses, this is going to be a net like we're talking about a net nerf to CEs, right? Let's call it what it is. It is a net nerf to CEs, but it's a net nerf to CEs in a certain context. CEs are still incredibly strong at building up backlines and preventing small elements from sniping and doing incursions back there because defenses are strong. But in frontline context, they're too strong, where you're forcing players to engage against AI structures as opposed to player structures. And when you've got enough players on a front, those defensive AI structures should be suppressed, frankly, and players should be fighting players. If you've got enough people there, that's great. AI is there to dissuade people from doing jank things across the map without a significant level of coordination. So in my head, this is a very good direction for them to go and take. And this can harmonize. And the beauty of it is going to harmonize their vision for Arty in a way that they can still apply this. Because I want to emphasize with Dark, I like where they're taking Arty from a flavor perspective. I'm not usually a flavor guy, but from a flavor perspective, where Arty is going is pretty cool. And it's pretty neat in the role it can play. But you have to counterbalance the void that is left. Because I mean, there's a question that also has to be asked. How in the world do you deal with concrete now? What
Exactly.
in the world other than overwhelming armor superiority and clutch plays with satchels against incompetent defenders? What the hell else are you going to do?
Exactly. That's a very good point, and that's the point I wanna discuss next. Like, imagine the bunker buster missions we did, and take arty out of them. That's just, you know. No, I know people are going to say, well, yeah, then we're going to use tanks, because we did use Shiv and all of the tanks to destroy bunkers, right? But what else changed this update, guys? What else got introduced for the infantry? Around like 6, if not more, weapons that deal with tanks in total on both sides. What do you think the tanks are gonna be greeted when they're gonna try and go for the concrete bunkers? It's so easy, especially now with all this equipment, to just sit back in concrete and just track a tank every 2 seconds by panzerfausting it or whatever.
Also worth noting, we didn't test this because we weren't able, but Howie garrisons completely neutralize any Howie play. You just forget about it. You will not have arty support on concrete bunkers that have Howie garrisons.
And from what I understand, they're pretty precise from the people that tested them. So they don't have the spread that the arty guns have, right? They keep their precision firing as it was before.
Real quick, what's the max range of a Howie Garrison, though? I thought it was 200.
As we understand, they increased it to be the same range as all of the other artillery.
Okay, yeah.
Also, Sorry, I just want to add it from experience. They're adding their range increases as soon as you aggro them, right?
So with that's a tidbit I wasn't aware of. That completely, and this is my POV. You as artillery, you can't deal with that structure at all. You cannot deal with that. If I was being told, hey Dark, can you destroy this? And if I see one Howie garrison pretty much aiming towards the direction we're attacking from, I would just tell them, sorry, we can't do it from here. That is like. And I'll be lucky if we hit it, and the splash would just probably get all the guns destroyed. Just from accidentally hitting Howie garrisons.
We come full circle now, and it goes back to a question: what is going to deal with concrete now? Aside from the point from Hiroshi, I really want to highlight where we should load the infantry. We should load the infantry up in the arty guns and just fire them with satchels, and they'll just,
That's the idea.
Yeah, I'm down with it. I think it would be extremely fun.
And this is just my POV too. From you can't and to use you have the what was it called, the 25 millimeter field gun, the bomb lobber, the mobile.
The wheelchair. Just call it by name. The wheelchair.
The wheelchair. And think about how bad armor has it now. And just think about trying to push this wheelchair up and thinking how that's going to perform. If a tank can't go up and siege it, what do you expect a wheelchair to go do? And maybe you'll be lucky and fire one shot, but that thing is going to go down. If there are tools to deal with armor, there are tools to deal with field guns.
By the way, you just reminded me for a very interesting aspect I want to talk to you guys about. So, chat is going to probably correct me, but if I understand, if you use a tripod, right, and you mount a gun on it, you can get grenaded. Like your HP becomes one and the same with the weapon, the tripod weapon. People that tested out, please correct me if I'm talking.
I have read that, but I have not confirmed it.
It's just a bug.
Well,
If I was to tell you, I think that's a bug currently because I don't think that's supposed to happen.
I'm like, if that's actually intended, right? I'm not sure if it's intended, but if that's actually intended, why are the wheelchairs not the same way? If we're going for that, right? And then that would make them more viable, if you ask me. If you couldn't, and I know it's unrealistic, whatever, it's a video game, but it would at least give it, if the wheelchairs would actually retain their crew until they got disabled or something, right? You can decrew them. That would make them viable. That would make the warden, mortar spigot or whatever we want to call it, would make it an actual tool that you could use.
I'm grateful that's not a thing though. Like that would be so
Yeah,
silly.
I was about to say that's not a solution I would want with the wheelchairs. I feel like, and for anyone out there, I see Maximilian's having troubles discerning. The wheelchairs are what the nickname we gave our field guns.
Pushables.
All
Everything that's
pushables
pushable.
that are, we call them wheelchairs. And that's not a solution, even though, don't get me wrong, Razor, I see what you mean, because everything will be used essentially, because if you can't die from it, it's like the same thing when we first had the emplacements be introduced. We had these ambitions that they're gonna suck, but when they came in, that frontal shield was so strong, they were basically, if you're in it, you're immortal. You can kill anything without having that one fear, which is dying.
Yeah,
But if they
I
give
get that
to
frustration.
these, I feel like that's not the fix what they need. I feel like what they need is either a back to the drawing board to see what we can do to make them better, or ultimately, and this is just my point of view, is get rid of them, because right now they're not even considered to be teched, like, at all. The AT gun, very situational thing, but there are other things you can do with that. But that's just mine.
So coming back to the discussion then, so like what I'm imagining then is like with the tools we have today, if you had a suppression mechanic where you got a Howier range, 120 or 150 millimeter of even a concrete base, and you started to suppress defenses with that, and then you begin your siege, and that siege is going to take you hour, 2 hours, and then from that perspective, you need to keep a steady barrage of shells coming, and that adds to the environment, but it's not designed to do anything other than to help suppress the enemy. And then the enemy has to make the decision of whether or not they're going to try to hunker down and prevent the enemy from closing, or whether they need to push back and stop the siege guns and prevent the infantry from closing. Because now what infantry can do, because this has always been the struggle with infantry, is if you don't one shot something with infantry, it's back to 100%. Because by the time you respawn and get your kit, you can't get back to capitalize on the damage you did. And so if you get 39 out of the 40 HEs required to kill something, tough cookies, it's back to 100% by the time you get back. With this, though, you can start to whittle away at things. You can do infantry. Okay, infantry, we got 10 more HEs in, 50, 40 more to go. Let's go. Get your kits. The arty's keeping it suppressed. Let's do this. And then the enemy has to, we can't let that happen again. They have to set up their machine guns. They have to create a no man's land for you to prevent that defense from taking another hit from infantry, right? It adds player agency, and they like player agency, into that combat where players must interact with players in these fights.
He's 100% right on that, because in the same breath, artillery is in that same boat as well. If we don't have enough, back then, if we didn't have enough artillery guns loaded with HE shells, if you come in with standard shells, I'm sorry, you're not going to kill anything. And this is coming from concrete to a tier 3 town hall.
Even relic bases.
That, I mean, again, you're right on that as well. I kind of forgot about that. Like, we use HE shells so religiously that if I ever see standard shells, it's kind of like oh fuck, it's gonna be that type of day, isn't it?
Yeah, and mostly we would just like do what, like AT turrets, like the soft shit. So we didn't even bother.
A Foxhole and an AT turret,
Yeah.
Maybe you can focus armor. Like, that was the only reasonable thing to say. Yeah, you know what, that was worth shooting. But with the HE shells, and it's like, those were the only things to deal with those structures back then. And with the new arty tweak now, and essentially the HE shell is kind of disappeared to this hybrid that is the new 150. It's kind of like.
But and here's the thing, and I know some of you might remember when the Iron Junction base was destroyed, right? The huge bunker base. I don't remember the war exactly, but it doesn't really matter. The huge bunker base 404 made on Iron Junction, right, in the end of the shore. And the way we dealt with it, because there was still battle tanks in the game and whatever, we used 4 arty guns with AG shells, manned by 82DK and FreeSP, and we would be shooting from different locations and also using Black Duchy from logistics on a howitzer to aggro the howies, the garrison howies, right? And it would still take around a minute or two to destroy each segment, even under that firepower. You get what I mean? And remember, those were basically snipers loaded with the best ammunition in the game, right? So the question is, unless they give up, what are you gonna assault a bunker like the 1404 builds everywhere? I still come back to this, bottom line question for me.
It's going to have to be one of those things that we're going to have to play and see.
Yeah.
But, should we move on?
Yeah, I think it's about time to move on. One more thing before we definitely go to the next thing. I just want to make a huge shout out to everybody who showed up yesterday to help Kaz with everything on testing, and help Dark as well, and really good work, because hopefully the devs can now look at that footage and maybe they will draw some conclusions that are going to be similar to us. Maybe we're going to see some buffs of the arty. Who knows? Maybe implement some of the stuff we talked about today.
If I can give a kind of a quick shout out in addition to that to Drac and his boys. I hate to single out Drac himself because there were so many people on his team. Brendo comes to mind. He signed on really early to help, but they did an awesome job organizing a base to get pulverized, and everybody kind of came together and was very supportive of doing this a little bit differently. And even shout out to KFC. KFC came out when we cored our bunker. He helped us actually reset it and saved us a lot of time on the builder side. And when we did the first 150 test, we pulverized the tier 2, and so it was pretty complete. So it was just a really good showing from everybody, and it's I can't call out everybody, but everybody that showed up yesterday was just awesome. It was great.
So speaking on feedback related to Foxhole, I just I sort of started this segue a bit earlier, but I'm going to come back to it when I was talking about the closed feedback, or whatever you want to call it, group, that Discord that was before, because I just want to highlight it real quick. The necessity of something like that coming back. I know we're probably not going to see it, but a thing I wanted to sort of bring to the attention of everybody, especially because Geoffrey is here today, is if we sound a bit too harsh at times, that's because we've been dealing with all of this stuff for a long time. And for me personally, I'll explain it like this: the issue is not really myself and how much I like or I don't like the game. That's something else entirely. The issue is every week we host these huge operations where anywhere from 40 to our golden times, even 100 people attend, right? And we're forced to sort of explain to the people that show up when things go wrong, why did they go wrong, right? And when we personally fuck up on a strategy level or on a planning level, right, on decisions from whoever's leading or whatever, that's fine. That's really easy to explain, and people are very understanding of it. But when there's stuff like a good example from Kaz, right? You attack something, and if you can take it down from one go, then it's back to 100%. And the perfect example is, think of those relic bases we've attacked on day 1, hour 1, and then we got them down to 20%, and then they sent like a few people with hammers and 20 BMATs on them, and they got it back to 60% in like 2 minutes, right? This is the sort of, back then we would shoot them with rifles and whatever, but it still didn't change much. The point of the matter is, just so you guys understand, this is why we're so passionate and maybe sometimes so harsh about it, because I wouldn't want anybody to have to sit there and tell so many people that we did everything right, but in the end of the day, it wasn't good enough, right?
There was a time years ago where we held the developers in quite high regard for the things that were coming into the game, and they could do no wrong and all of that thing. But I think after a certain amount of time, when you're not seeing the changes that need to be put into the game, like for instance, the clan system's coming into the game now, but I mean, for what it is, it should have been in the game a long time ago, because it would have helped organizations like us with player retention. It would have helped people to continue playing the game and be part of something. It would also help with things like teaching people how to play the game, because how many people do you think have bought Foxhole, played it for a couple of hours and not understood what the hell's going on, and then just either refunded the game or never played it again? You know what I mean? That type of thing should have been in the game a long time. I'm glad it's coming in, but it should have been in the game a long time ago. And when you defend something for so long, you realize that you're actually damaging it by not seeing the problems with it. And I think that from that point onwards, we try to be a lot more constructive rather than just seeing everything with sunshine and rainbows. It's there's things that need to be said about the game, and whether they listen to us or not. I mean, with this current patch or update that's coming out, it does appear that a lot of what we've said over the years has been listened to somewhere along the line. It's just whether it's going to help with keeping players on the game for a longer period of time, because a lot of the things that they're implementing are demanding a lot more player agency involved in them. And it's going to be great for the first war, probably great for the second war, but somewhere along the line, the players are going to dip again if things aren't up to scratch. And it's just been a lack of we've had faith, but over time it's been tested time and time again. And although we're very, very passionate about the game and we're extraordinarily passionate about the clan that we run, it's there's only so much that a community can take in regards to being everything being so cryptic and information not being shared freely and things like that. It's not something that we expected from the development team, and it's taken its toll over time. But we're still very passionate about the game, and we're holding out hope that the game is going to be up to scratch when it finally hits 1.0.
And to add to this point, I think I can put something visually on the screen when we're talking about being cryptic and this sentiment of secrecy, right? Always around what's next and such. I don't know if maybe they just considering a marketing strategy or whatever, and I know a lot of people are gonna jump on me and say, well, you can't compare these two games, but I'm not comparing the games. I'm comparing the way the development teams choose to approach the progress of the game, right? And I want to bring up Barotrauma. I know how many of you know it. It's basically a very fun who can help me with a
It's like
good
side
description?
scroller.
Yeah, go
It's
ahead.
an under the sea adventure.
It's a drowning simulator.
And this is their Trello page, right? With everything on the game, right? And you have here an introduction, known issues like bugs and whatever, the most recent releases, and this is where it gets really interesting, right? Coming up in the next release, short-term plans, long-term plans, hopes and dreams, right? You see this, like anybody can go through these and upvote them, offer them feedback on them, and so on and so forth. I think this is an incredibly cool way to approach. And I know, every development team gets to do their own thing, but I'm honestly way more hyped to come on a page like this and read about what the devs are thinking and what they're up to on even long term and hopes and dreams, rather than this cryptic, oh my god, what's it gonna be next, right? And I think this formula also offers people a lot more a lot more perspective to give feedback, right? Because they can talk about a lot of stuff before it comes in the game, and they can think about how other things are going to be affected by it, and so on and so forth.
You bring up the point of what is the infrastructure for player engagement, because that's where the early access model is supposed to be cutting its teeth on. You've released your game in early access because you want your community to be involved in the development of your game, right? You want to have that engagement. So what infrastructure do you provide for that engagement, and how effective is that infrastructure? And do the players feel like it's relevant and helpful? And I think you've had varied experiences there in this early access journey.
See, I don't really feel like in certain elements, yes, the development team are very interested in implementing things and player ideas and things like that. But I just want to bring up something that I believe Geoffrey asked a question to Julian in your last podcast, and you mentioned about the mechs, and he gave a very definite answer of no, because Mark doesn't want steampunk in the game. But I challenge you to find one person on either faction that would be opposed to mechs being put into the game.
That would be me. I'm sorry. This is probably our greatest. I wonder if this is going to be our greatest contention today. But I am not a proponent of seeing the mechs in the regular game.
So the idea that I had about them before is that they would only, in very extended wars, locked out at the very end of the tech trees after everything else has come out in a very rare circumstances. So that's the way that I envisioned them being implemented into the game. The problem that I have with them is that the work has already been done on them and they look amazing. So if it was just simply concept, if we were just saying we want mechs in the game but they didn't exist, it would be completely understandable to say no, we're not doing that. That's not what this game is. However, they've put resources into them. They've not only put resources into them, they're some of the best looking vehicles that they've ever produced. So putting them in, and like from a marketing perspective, we might not think it's a good idea, but if you're trying to earn money, if you want to really earn money, you stick Foxhole on the front page of Steam with 2 mechs in either side of it, and you'll sell a million fucking copies. And we all know that's the case. You know what I mean?
Look at Iron Harvest, simply.
It doesn't make any sense that right. So you're the first person that I've met. There's a couple of people in chat saying they don't want mechs either. But I mean, for the vast majority of people that I've come into contact with, they can't, like me, they cannot understand the reason why that they haven't been implemented in the game. And from what I can see, and from what Julian said the other day, it's all down to Mark and Mark not liking that. You know what I mean? But if the vast majority of your community is saying that we want it, but then the one guy is saying no, you know what I mean? It doesn't set a good thing for the game. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it comes back to the meme of the vision. We joke, but it's like, it's not really a joke. You know what I mean? There's people that are passionate about, and when they see work like that, they want to see it in their game. It's really heartbreaking to see, to see them say no, even though it's already been created and it's already been teased. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
the reason you don't see these people is we screen people that are allowed to speak with you.
Yeah.
No. But just from, I mean, that was very impassioned. I appreciate it. I don't know. Part of me just likes it. It's like, yeah, they put in the effort, and the fact that we literally only see that, if at all, because we didn't see them last Halloween, but literally the only fact that we see them during Halloween, I think that's awesome. Like, they made this in essentially a game jam kind of environment. Maybe Julian or whoever is the actual 3D modeler. The fact that they probably worked on that, I don't know, like on the side, waiting for the pipeline. Because I think what we also learned from Julian's appearance on the show is that there's actually more of a rigid pipeline than I thought there was, personally, from what I gather from that. But Adam, just the fact that you literally only see it, maybe, if at all, once a year, kind of makes it cooler. Now, I
agree with you on that point. Sorry to interrupt you. It's like, I just think like once a year, yeah, perfect. But it shouldn't really be locked out to Halloween, in my opinion. It should be maybe once every 3 months is what I'm asking for. I'm not asking.
I think it's an artistic. Yeah. I think Julian even mentioned that too. We're like, yeah, it'd be cool if we could get, I don't know, for, 4th of July. No, that's something Easter. Yeah. Easter egg hunt with mechs. Yeah, sure. But just that it's, I mean, we also know that I don't think the devs really care that much about money. I mean, they do, but like in terms of turning a profit, yeah, no. If they needed money, then I guess that's their ace in the hole. Just hey, this is the better Iron Harvest, where this is an actually good game. But in terms of just in terms of, I think it comes down to, there you go. I think it comes down to a subjective art decision, and I think Mark is kind of digging his heels in, and it's a choice. Part of me is like, yeah, I guess it would be cool, but are we? I don't know. Joke about the vision, but yeah, it comes down to your vision. And personally, I tend to lean more towards. I kind of like that more 10% fantasy as opposed to 50% fantasy or
Totally.
diesel punk or whatever.
Totally do. But we're not talking about 50 or even 20. We're talking about 1% of the time, not even that. Once every 3 months, you have a chance to get one of these things. Or another way that you could work it is, say if a war goes on for a certain length of time, one of the really, really long wars that like last into the hundreds of days, when all of the rockets have been fired, all of that type of stuff, you get that tech unlock where you can unlock the mech, and it's after maybe you get something like War 19, and then you're starting to see mechs right at the end of the war, sort of thing. Even if it was just something like that, it would be good enough. You know what I mean? So it's at least there, a possibility in the game in the background, even though it never gets reached, like hardly ever gets reached to. It's very rare that you even see one, but it should be in the game at some point, because it's just the model. The whole aesthetic behind it is too good to leave out of the game. And I understand that people don't want to make Foxhole steampunk. I don't want Foxhole to be steampunk. But having this one little thing right at the end of a tech tree that hardly ever gets seen, I don't think there's any harm in that, considering how bloody cool it is.
I honestly just wanna add a bit here on this. Like, think about the rockets, right? How often do the rockets get fired? Because it's not that often if you think about it, right? Like, it's not. You'd expect it to be way more often than it actually happens. The wars are not that many. Most of the wars sort of conclude before now with the new changes on arty, it might actually be a bit of a twist on that. But I'm just saying. So putting them as an extremely like late war tech, I don't think would make them appear more than probably twice or 3 times a year or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what Avitus is trying to say. But
yeah,
I would actually sort of like, for me on this entire discussion, Julian's reaction to all of that was sort of telling. I'm sorry. For me personally, the way he said it was sort of, we can't even talk about it because Mark is like, no. And
well, I'm sure they talk about it, but more so it's like at the end of the day,
Mark says
make the decision on that. And who knows, maybe half the team doesn't think it should be on there and half the team does. We really don't know.
Absolutely. We're just speculating. But the thing I do know, and the thing we've discussed in the past here, is all of the vehicle variation and stuff. And this is a point Dark brought in a long time ago. When all of this was sort of presented, it was presented sort of a test. We're testing stuff. We want to see how this works, sort of a thing. And then all of a sudden, one update was boom, asymmetry. They presented it sort of as an experiment, and it was actually very laid forward and very planned to the T. Is where people start having issues with it, and we have issues with it. At least I have issues with it, because I understand you need a game director. Basically, that's what Mark is trying to be, right? I don't know if he names himself like that, but he is basically the game director. But I don't like this approach where he's the game director, but also says that we're testing stuff, and then we go back to I'm the game director, so. If you get what I mean.
I mean, isn't that how it is in every development studio, I would think, right? At the end of the day, it comes down to the decision of however many people.
I think in early access, a lot of games, at least a lot of development teams that I consider to be very, very good development teams, look at feedback, and they don't just look at the feedback that is,
as noise,
kissing their ass, basically. You know what I mean? Like they look at feedback that's constructive, and that maybe they look at the things that people have a problem with their particular game, and they look at the reasons why that problem's rearing its face again and again and again. And I've not really seen that from the Clapfoot team, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen attempts
Yeah.
to engage with the community, but they've always like fallen short. In my
Or
opinion,
cause more harm than good in some cases. I don't want to go into specifics, but
yeah, it's tough because I don't know. Trying to put myself in their shoes, like at one point, I mean, the overwhelming avalanche of the totality of all ideas thrown at the wall, it's probably not going to be all that great. But that brings up a good question. How much do you actually not let in, but how much do you actually act upon in order to be considered taking in good feedback? It's tricky.
It is tricky, and it comes back to communication. I think that
that's the key.
to highlight some things that are favorable, right? We started this out by speaking of a favorable development, and Mark posting some of the notes, and those notes give us a sense that some of what we've given appears to have reached them in ways that this group doesn't feel is as common as we would like it to be. The fact that they engage with you on PressCorps is awesome. That's a wonderful liaison in the community. We get some insight there. But in spite of all those touch points, there are members of the most dedicated members of the community, I feel, are overwhelmingly feel that we're in the dark more than we ought to be, I guess, is probably the most succinct way to say it. And that's just our preference versus their preference, perhaps. Our expectations versus their strengths or weaknesses as a team, because there are some development teams that are really strong in this, and this doesn't appear to be a skill set that they have in their team that they execute as well as we as a community want them to execute it. And that our expectations may be unreasonable. That's fair, but it is what it is.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if the devs would just come out and say, hey, 82DK guys, we can't do that. Like, that's not even possibly going to happen.
Do you know what, dude? Do you know what? We would love that. We would absolutely love that, dude. If they could just come out and say no, that would be.
But here's the thing, right? Yeah, and I agree that would be a dream come true. But at the same time, it's like, I wonder if they even know. I wonder if Mark even knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, because I'm someone who like is constantly defeating their own arguments as they come up with them, which is probably why I stutter a lot. But I wonder if we don't want to say that, and we're all speculating what's really going on in their heads. But what if they say that? It's like, well, then we're losing the potential of maybe the hundreds of ideas that the No Man's Land Live is coming out we're not really up to, but that one idea that they put out, you know what? Yeah, we like that. So we want to keep that channel open just in case we're the 1 out of 1,000 will actually bear fruit. And like, oh, you know what? This came in at the right time. If I'm, I don't know if that makes sense. Now, of course, that's hell on you guys because, why are you only taking in 1 out of 1,000 ideas? It'd be really nice if you could just give us some direction. And I guess that's where it is.
That's been I want to say our dream, to sort of have them take on feedback directly from us for quite some time. You know what I mean? Like, ever since I've been part of the clan, really, it's always been a thing that a lot of our prominent members have constantly sent them in very, very detailed things on how the game should be changed. And not all of them are listened to. We don't expect all of them to be listened to, but they haven't even been acknowledged in a lot of circumstances. You know what I mean? And that's the frustrating thing, where you sort of having to come to your members and say, relax on this, stop pushing it, sort of thing, because they want to feel as if they're being heard, and a lot of them don't feel that way.
And that's the key. If I could raise it just one second, I'm
Sure,
sorry, but I
no
just want to piggyback on that. Because in a perfect example of it is this repair mechanic, because we're not coming out of the middle of nowhere, just being like, this is not a new revelation that this has been a problem. And we feel like we've been shouting in the darkness about this forever. And we feel like it's a systemic problem that's been around for a long time. And there's silence. There's radio silence on it. It's almost like it's not actually like it's a problem for us and nobody else is what it feels like when you look at something like that. And and then you couple that with Razor's point from earlier that there's an absence of forward-looking information on where we're headed. in that we don't have a sense of where the development team is taking things. We can speculate. We have some themes perhaps, but
you don't like that vague timeline that they show?
No, I don't. I really don't. But like, I don't know if they're going to fix certain aspects. I don't know if the shotgun's going to remain a meme for the rest of my life. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there's all kinds of things that are evidently problems to anybody who would look at it, and we just don't have any clue of where we're headed.
So you would like a Trello card. Let's just say Trello for whatever reason.
It's a good example.
You would like a Trello card. You would like a Trello card that says shotguns off the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'll explain it. It's very simple. For us, if something is there, it's in the game, we have to explain it to people. New people are going to come in and they're going to pick the shotgun and say, wow, a shotgun. I want to use the shotgun. And then we're instantly have to say, no, put down the shotgun, mate. You're never gonna use it again. Just it's called a confetti cannon. It's not actually a shotgun. Calm down. And it's frustrating in a sense that I would rather prefer say, yes, it's a shotgun momentarily, and this iteration of the game, it's basically good for nothing. But there's at least reason to believe at some point it's going to get another look at it, right? I would prefer saying that. Or I would prefer saying shotguns don't exist in this game. It's your imagination. Just like it's not real. You see it, but it's not really there. Forget about it forever. And I also don't understand.
But you would just like to know where the devs stand on that.
Absolutely. Or I would have them just remove the shotgun entirely, so so people cannot spend BMATs. And I know a lot of people are like, oh well, they're so cheap or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's still an effort. It's still a guy who just logged in. He sees he can make shotguns, and he's like, I'm gonna make some shotguns and take them to the front line. I'm gonna really help the team by doing that. And it turns out
it was even acknowledged that was a problem, right? It's not even acknowledged as a problem. If it's something like this is not on our list. This is a long-term, or this is a pipe dream for us to address it with something, but at least acknowledge that the thing is broken. Like everybody knows it's broken, except apparently the dev team. And maybe they do know it's broken, but we don't know that. All we know is that they haven't addressed it. Therefore, it leaves us with the impression that this is working as intended.
I know to that point, I know KFC, made memes about it and laughed about how bad it is, but that doesn't change things for us. And I go back to the same point. If they don't want to change it in any way, why keep it in the game? Just remove it. Why this fear of removing something? I don't think we ever got, well, aside from like really cool stuff like battle tanks. But
good.
No, there's your answer.
Yeah, but I don't think we ever had like, equipment that's underpowered. Like just, commit and say, well, shotguns, we don't like the concept of it, or they're not viable in the meta we're creating, so we're just removing them. That would be fine by me. I would be super okay with it. But like I said, it creates false hopes, especially for new players, picking them up and being like, a shotgun. I'm going to go and do really cool things with this thing. And then, everybody around you telling you, no, stop doing that. This is one example. I'll give another example. Trenches, another very bad example, where people have to like, to the point where we even had videos of people going insanely toxic to like new players because they were digging a trench, right? And it's so hard because like we've been in the shoes of those people, and we were like, please, sir, please be kind and stop digging here, right? And it's
somebody call a PR specialist. We got to get this guy off the line.
Exactly. We're like, we're gonna attach HR people to each squad now to deal with like literal liaisons to try and negotiate hostage.
I like how the Foxhole
situations.
version of a commissar is just someone who's trying to be nice to new people trying to build a trench, as opposed to shooting them on site in 40K.
Yeah, well, a lot of people really want to shoot them on site. I'm going to tell you that much. Like, it's a struggle to stop those people constantly.
They usually get ran over. A tank usually rolls by as they're digging the trench, and we have no more issues.
Accidents happen. Well,
so really, just, so you just want more. You just want more confirmation. You want it laid out in a neater way that says, hey, where do you stand on all of these mechanics, on all of these issues? Do you even recognize what everyone is talking about, or certain segments of the population are talking about? Maybe you don't even have to maybe the devs don't even have to necessarily agree with it, But just putting it on the radar and potentially for them to even say, no, that's not a problem because of this. You're looking at this, well, maybe not even wrong, but you're looking at this differently than we are because of this reason.
It would help us out a great deal. And I think that like something that exacerbates the problem with our particular organization is that when you've got so many moving parts and then you throw a spanner into the works, you know, it's hard to fix the machine if you're constantly throwing new spanners in, and the bigger the machine, the harder it is to fix. So that's why you see disruption to tactics with 82DK at the start of like new patches and stuff like that. But it's to be expected, but it takes a hell of a long time to learn all of the new nuances because you're only finding out about them on the day. You know, you're not allowed, like this time around we've been allowed to test and things like that, but a lot of the things you're just seeing them as they're coming out. They're not getting extensive testing before they're getting released. A lot of these vehicles, you know, they've been tested by the devs, but you know, I imagine that the devs look at Foxhole more as a job rather than a pastime. And like we're very passionate about it. It's not our job, it's our pastime. So like we want to know about these things in advance so that we can teach ourselves how to use this equipment, how the game's going to change. So then going forward into the patch itself, we can then relay that to our squads so things run a lot more smoother. We can take on new people to the game, and we're not like you know, hang on a minute, we need to learn this ourselves first, sort of thing. You know, it would be like immensely useful to us to know a lot more information before it actually hits the live servers.
And I'll present you one more problem I have with all of this.
Mm-hmm.
It has been slowly creating this obsession I would say on both sides, you know, where wardens are like, you know, colonial bias. And it's not a meme. It's not, people are not saying that in a funny way anymore, I'm telling you. And the colonials are the same way, you know, warden bias. And I feel it stems from this as well, because if in this discussion you come in as a party that kind of keeps things sane and kind of tries to go for the middle of, you know, just saying, well, you know, they just probably changed something and it wasn't an intended result for the colonial to get an advantage, it's like you're seen like the crazy guy. And I feel it's associated with this because you don't have the backup of what's going to happen in the future, for example, to be able to say, yes, well, maybe colonials got the light tank destroyer, but you know, in this case now we have the half track that also has the 80 half track on the warden side that has 45 meters, right? That just an example. It's not a great example, but I'm just saying, if you'd have better, or at least if you would have known they are looking into the half track to modify its range, right? There was nothing to announce that in any way. We just got lucky because of Shiv doing that feedback, right? We don't even know if that was it. Maybe it was already in the works. we just take these victories just assuming, thank God Shiv did that post. You know, hopefully that was it.
Yeah, so I guess out of all this, just everyone DM Mark, hey, publicize your Trello.
Yeah. Well,
basically,
we're joking, but
more than that, of course. Yeah, more than that.
Yeah.
But
no,
something.
Honestly, like I would love to have a sneak peek. Yeah,
like a real roadmap as opposed to a vague quarterly feature goes here. Right, would be very nice. Maybe going into the specifics. I just know that this is why I've preferred Zero Dark and I've preferred Reddit over the horrible mess that is Discord general chat. Feedback chat is nice because that seems very like kind of like submitting a form. But the the general chat is just a horrible place to talk game mechanics because there's no pacing of anything, and it's literally everyone can talk in there at the same time. So yeah, just a neater way so we can stop retreading old arguments and at least be all in the same headspace. Yeah, I was debating on whether I should play devil's advocate, but I don't think it's worth it right now. I think just putting it out there is nice.
I mean, please do if you feel that you should. You know,
well, like I said, I'm defeating my own arguments in real time in my head, so I don't know. part of it just stems from the fact of, do people know how to accept no, right? It's like, no, we don't think the game should be going this direction. And will people accept that? Like, for instance, the mechs, like Avidus, I'm sorry, but like, just even if adding a spider-legged tank at the very end of the war, the last 15 days of the war, you still added a spider-legged tank into the game proper. But that's more of an artistic thing than say fighting over something less subjective than a game mechanic.
I get your point, but what I think about this is, now that Avitus has an answer, he's not gonna, threaten.
That's fair about it.
Exactly. He's just gonna, like, people that they know the thing is not gonna work, right? So what's gonna happen is Avitus is gonna get a new pet, project, and he's gonna be like, this needs to happen.
No, it's the only thing I understand what you're saying totally. With the only thing that sort of made me focus on the mechs was the huge amount of illogical argument around not putting them in the game. You know what I mean? As opposed to putting them in the game. I don't know. I don't want to continue with the mechs, but like I totally get what you're saying in respects to, can people handle no? I just think that people should be trusted to handle no, rather than just being like, maybe we can't trust the community not to handle us, plainly saying something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, then why bother doing it early access in the first place, right?
I think we've already committed enough time to know that that we're in this for the long haul. So I think we're grown up to know, yes or no on a certain question or whatever on something.
And now I sort of reminded of another thing, that along the lines of trust and such, it's just simple. This is the internet. You're going to have grown-ups, you're going to have grown-ups that are like children, you're going to have actual children, you're going to have everybody here. It doesn't matter how you do it, they're just going to be themselves anyway. So just try and talk to the ones that are willing to talk, and ignore the ones that are just going to screech about it and not be productive about it, right? One thing I personally never understand and will never understand is this fear of, for example, there was discussed this mechanic of adding a map you could draw with your team on or something like that. And it's like, well, we can't do that because everybody's gonna do swastikas and dicks and stuff. And it's like, then I looked back to the games I've played with mechanics like this, like it was discontinued, but Total War had that multiplayer online thing where you could basically play Total War, but in 12v12 scenarios. It was called Arena. I don't know if you guys know it. Mm-hmm. The point is, they had a map there, so you can you needed some way to communicate with 11 players. You know what I mean? Like, it was insane to expect them to do that over text or anything else.
Right.
And I can tell you, almost every game in that game was like swastikas and dicks on your map. But that you know what I mean? Like, it didn't nothing happened because of that. Everybody was still alive. Nobody got sued. It's just like, I understand it's unpleasant. Yes, I can understand that. But at the same time, just like feeling away from actual things that can improve something just because kids are going to be kids, or like adults are going to act like kids. I don't understand that. I really don't, because it's, in the end, it's not their responsibility if people decide to be dumb. The same way that some people, made swastikas out of their bodies in home regions, right? That's not anybody's fault at Clapfoot, and they're never going to be accused by, of it by anybody, if that makes sense.
I would actually contend with that to a degree, I think, because it's like, I mean, you can blame Facebook for the amount. I mean, we're getting into this now, so just so you know, we're
Don't
really
get me started on that, dude.
Yeah, I was
Don't
about to say.
get me started on the degradation of society because of that. Man.
No.
Fucking hell. We'll be here for
Don't
hours.
want to hear.
I don't know if we want to do that.
We're sitting on mechanics, on game mechanics. But yeah, no. Continue your point, though, Geoffrey.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I would be hesitant to put drawing on maps by the... Well, no, it's different if you're in a squad, I guess. I would allow that in a squad or an operation.
I don't think anybody ever asked for the entire 100 players to share the same map in order to...
Yeah, that's also true.
Stuff. Like, that would be that would make no sense. But for a regiment, right? Because we're talking about regiments now, right? For a regiment to be able to have something closer to global HQ, right? Because you remember when KFC and Mark were asked about implementing more functions in the game, they were like, "Nah, we prefer like you guys finding third party options for this." It's like, why? Why would you prefer that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes no sense to me. This should be part of the game. I shouldn't have to alt tab every 2 seconds to put some sort of plan on the map, or even to ask for a lodge order. Literally, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. All we need is the same thing that Global HQ had. A panel with all the equipment needed, not needed, I mean available, where you can set the equipment you need, and a marker on the map to tell your logi where to bring it. That's it. Nothing else.
Not even, I mean, it would be useful to us. It would make our jobs easier, but I think it would be a game changer to randoms and people that are organized, because it would just,
I think so too.
It would help help them organize a hell of a lot better on the map, with these random squads or people, teaching people how to play the game. It would be immensely useful as a tool for that sort of thing. And in a game, in a strategy game like Foxhole, you need that tool. We've been denied that tool for so long, and we badly need it. And regardless of what kids are going to do, it's a necessary component, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've mentioned this too, where it's like the one I'll say with PlanetSide 2, which is where I come from, and I've had more kind of gameplay from. I'm more in your guys' position, because I used to lead an outfit, and we'd have like 3 platoons of 150 people. That was a logistical nightmare. But at least PlanetSide 2 had the tools to facilitate that, which was you had a platoon system where you could split it up into 4 squads, 12 people in each squad, 48 people in a platoon, and
from PlanetSide as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so just even having that, I have always contended that is the one thing, more than anything else, that has made PlanetSide, that was able to get it to survive this long. And thankfully now, apparently, to a new renaissance with not new developers, but different publisher now. So that is the one saving grace of that game. Now there's a lot more fundamental issues with PlanetSide 2 that kind of prevent me from going back to it proper. But just that alone, I feel, is so important for a war sandbox. So yeah, just the fact that it took them this long to get a regiment system, a bare bones regiment system, let alone a proper squad, platoon, whatever thing with all the knickknacks and features there, that's not good planning. And here's the thing, right? They know this. They have to know this. They absolutely have to know this by now. So I kind of stopped bringing it up. Because they've acknowledged, like, hey, we know Geoffrey Jennings, you're the guy that is talking about regiments all the time. It's like, yep, that's me. And I've kind of stopped talking about it in that time between February, when it was announced, or whenever, January, I don't know, this year versus 8 months ago or whenever. I kind of stopped talking about it because I've kind of made peace with the fact that they know it. They have to schedule it differently, or rather, they have to know by now that that is an important thing. So at this point, I've kind of made peace with it and just kind of trusted them to do whatever, as opposed to kind of harping on it. So I guess for you guys, I don't know. Is that good for me to do?
I think there should be. I think there should be someone always, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Because if you haven't got that person in the community, you've only got the our raw opinions to go on. And I think that having the PressCorps and having you keep people's hopes up about the future, and and seeing the good in a lot of what we see as questionable, is a good thing overall for the community.
And that brings me back to the kind of the Trello idea. Again, it doesn't have to be Trello, but something like a concrete roadmap for things. What if they did have that? They had a card that said shotguns, and it's like, yep, we do. Or no, let's go to regiments. And let's say that they weren't implemented. It's like, regiments, we know it's important, and then they just never do anything with it. Well, for at least a year. It takes them, like it did in real life. in actuality, it took them like 4 years to do it. What if they had that's just kind of the direction that we have to live with.
I was about to say.
Know,
go ahead there.
I was going to say, because the same thing could be said with the whole tripod system. They announced it was coming. We at least knew they were eventually going to come. Sure, there was some harassment on, hey, where are those tripods you guys mentioned? But at least people knew they were coming. It would be nice, and I think they did say it, that tripods are being put on hold. But that's the thing. That's where the communication goes, and it's we knew at least they were coming. They were put on hold. Now the community can stop. Really, you have the people that still act like kids, that act like they don't know, but majority of the people knew they were on hold until XYZ. And that's the thing where the regiment system was like shaky, because there was almost little to no communication on, was this going to be done? And this is where earlier Avidus said, it's about time they released it, but has the damage been done that it's been released a little too late,
So here's the way I see it. First of all, on the thing, on the tripods, right? Although they said they're going to be coming with a delay, the difference here would have been to see the actual card put there under, delayed, or for the patch that is going to come in winter or whatever. Having a visual representation of it helps people manage their expectation, right? Talking about the regiment system, right? We've been talking about that system since Steam release. That's when I first brought it up to Mark myself, right? And like, honestly, until Mark started hinting towards it recently, we still didn't know exactly if it's even gonna come. Like, I know at some point he said, well, it's gonna be here 1.0, something like that. And it's like,
well, we didn't know if that was a real priority, because
exactly,
or where it was going to lie. Yeah.
So I think the important part is seeing on what column it goes into. Is it the column that is next update? Is it the column that is after next update? Or is it similar to the Barotrauma team under hopes and dreams, right? Because there's nothing wrong with putting something under hopes and dreams, but then the players also know, well, this is something very improbable, but there is a chance for it, right? That's where oil rigs should be. That's where, like fuel storage or whatever other stuff they're hinting, like seeing exactly where it goes in those columns would make a huge of a difference, at least in my opinion, right? Because the expectation get managed depending on that. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with moving it around at some point, as long as it's a transparent process where they say, well, the regiment system was initially programmed for the next patch, but now we're moving it down to later developments. We don't have time for it, but at least people see it, right? At least people manage their expectations according to something. Because like every time in these like 3-4 years, whatever time frame you wanna pick up, every time we've come back to this, there was always the same answer, like yeah, they're coming, yeah, they're gonna be here, yeah, we're looking into it, right? And now that they're here, nobody even like was like celebrating it. It was like sort of a yay, nobody can bring
more like
themselves.
A finally.
Exactly. It's not something to look forward. It's like, about fucking time. We've been waiting for this for years, literal years.
I remember. Oh, go ahead.
Half-Life 3 territory by the time it came out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty much. I remember. I just found this. I'm going to share it. I remember putting in this submission 3 years ago on Reddit about proposed regiment system, improving the squad experience, whatever. That was 3 years ago, officially, according to Reddit. My favorite comment there is still, so you can take that chain of command with global audio and shove it so far up your ass, it'll share space with your gallbladder from my point of view. I love that comment. It was great.
When he's having a bad day, he goes back and reads it.
Yeah, pretty much. But it makes my day worse. And it makes me feel better. But Yeah, no, that aside, I think, you know what? No, forget it. Let's just put a period on this. If the devs make a Trello and publicize it, they'll get less pings. That's all you need to say. Just tell them, yeah, you'll get less pings, because then you can just say, look at the Trello. That's it.
Yeah, and we'll
That's it.
try. We'll do it ourselves. We're gonna direct people to the trail ourselves. I promise.
All right. I don't know how much you wanted to more talk about that in terms of
I think
going back and forth.
I think we're done here. I think this is right, Razor.
Yeah.
We're done with this segment.
Yeah, we're basically.
So I would love to go down more hypotheticals, but at the end, it's funny because people, I love being called a developer shill. It's great. It makes me so happy because they actually think I have that much time on my hands. But I've kind of defaulted to kind of like being like the devil's advocate on so many things.
To be that. Someone needs to be that.
Yeah. So I'll happily take that hit. I like
Well,
it.
and
You'll be nothing more than a rabid fanboy. And it's like, yeah, that, you know what? From your point of view, that does make sense because in a lot of instances, I've just had to be devil's advocate. Yeah, that's fine. That's fair.
If I pick someone to be devil's advocate, it would always be you, dude.
And the thing is, the thing you need to consider when saying that is, don't imagine we don't do the same thing even inside ourselves.
Yes,
like
that's extremely important.
You know,
I tell that to people who watch your guys' show and go, man, they're really negative. Well, they have points. You know, they're coming at it from a point of view, right? So.
We're constantly trying to, you know, to be our own devil advocate. We take turns on that when we're discussing stuff pre-stream and stuff like that. And, you know, to a point, especially to changes where something gets affected, like in Kaz's case, where sadly he had to call it here, but I'll just put it up for him. When an aspect of the game gets attacked, but I'll put some, you know, like air quotations around attacked like that. I understand him, you know, having to go aggressive about it, because just to explain, his ideal of Foxhole is that infantry combat of the starting war, you know, when there's nothing around and you can just maneuver around, you can really use tactics, squad tactics and such, right? There's no bunkers, there's no you know, complex stuff to kill you. It's just infantry versus infantry, and the better squad with the better tactic wins, right? That's his ideal in Foxhole. When that, you know, gets combined with all of these obstacles we've seen lately, where foxholes can be shot, now the blizzard comes in and freezes your ass, and so on and so forth, you can't sympathize with the frustration there, right? Even though maybe the majority of people like it or whatever, you're still sort of taking away from the game from a segment of people that like it. And I say that while acknowledging you can't keep everybody happy. I would never expect everybody to be happy. That's literally impossible in anything, more so in game development, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, this is why sometimes probably, you know, people take us as negative, because in the end we're also players, and we're also very involved with leading in this game. So when an aspect we care deeply about is getting attacked, again, air quoting, you can't help but, you know, express protest about it in probably a more aggressive way that you would normally do, right? If that makes sense.
It's like, how do you tell like 60 plus people that they did everything perfect? Everything they did in execution, following orders, getting things done was done to a letter, but there was a game mechanic that just prevents them from achieving that goal. Like just going to heart and telling all those people that, you know, you guys played well, but because of this, you know, unfortunate thing in the game, we weren't led to success. And it's, you know, it's disheartening for being in that position to really tell all these guys they did everything good, but it wasn't enough because the game is, you know, bottlenecked by this certain object.
And you basically go back and say, you know, the only solution is feedback, and, you know, putting it out there, putting the problems out there. Hence, you know, this happening mostly.
Right. Shall we move on?
Yes. So for the last segment here, I thought it would be cool if maybe we can even get chat involved if anybody wants to put a good question here for Geoffrey. I don't know. I think if I should probably start, Geoffrey, it would be like how difficult it is to like sit there through those streams with the developers there, and we all know there's gonna be people coming in with, I don't want to say, I don't know, maybe not as
Like a Band-Aid.
yeah, like not incredibly great questions, let's call them, having to moderate constantly between those two mediums. How hard do you find it?
It's a really tricky balancing act because you have to balance. Well, you don't want to like censor the person and look like you're just trying to make the question easier, but at the same time, yeah, some people really just don't know how to ask questions properly, and they kind of go on into a mini rant, which is fine to a degree, because some things kind of do take a story to really dig into, and then also got to keep things on time, on pace, and try to make the most out of it. I should state that rarely do I ever actually take the developers' feelings into question. I should state that first and foremost, because I've seen a lot of talk, and even some DMs where it's like, man, you should stop dressing up the question for the devs here. No, that's not quite it, because they're getting paid to literally do this, so they can handle it. But yes, it's hard, because but so I just try to have, at the end of the day, I just kind of have to make assumptions. I have to make some quick decisions and assumptions on what people are really get at the heart of what they're trying to ask. And sometimes I'm wrong. You'll notice that sometimes where it's like, oh, so do you really mean this? And then I'll try and go down that path, and they go, no, this isn't what I really meant. I meant this. I was like, okay, well, at least we got there eventually. So yeah, it's a balancing act, and I just gotta take the hits and roll with them, because sometimes it does look like I'm trying to make things nicer in front of the devs, or I'm trying to make it look like, oh well, we don't want to cover that hard topic because it's just too much right now, or whatever. It's hardly the case. It's really just more so, how do I make this interesting for someone's time?
Yeah, I can definitely see that, and I I think it's also hard because a lot of people, you know, I've saw a lot of situations where, so I'm sort of divagating for what we're talking, but I want to go into this a bit, where there was some controversial stuff happening, or KFC said something, and then Mark comes in, and Mark is debunking or trying to explain what KFC said, and you have to sort of sit through that and be supportive of that. Um, I'll also be frank on this, and there's a lot of history there. I don't know how much you've looked into it, but especially between community and KFC, there's a very long history there, and it stems with, and I'm not gonna we never sugarcoat it here, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it now, especially if Kaz would have been here, he would have had better words about it. There's a strong sense that KFC has difficulties with doing his part as the actual community manager, and I know it's easy to sit and judge when that task is almost impossible to have everybody happy, or how many people do say about the community manager that he's doing great, right? They're generally persons that either a side or another side of the community will always hate. But there's points like in the past, and I'm not going to bring back the past, I'm going to bring up something recent.
Is it a clip or is this a picture? Mhm.
The wind direction on a gunboat. The new changes of artillery gunboat has no ability to.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Razor, I don't mean to cut you off, but it seems like there's an audio issue with you.
Oh, sorry. I think yeah, there was a bit of a problem on my end. So I was saying it should be fine now. I was saying that if you guys remember when KFC told the, I think it was on FOD, told people that he hopes the Colonials take over Kirknell so he can have a massive fight over the bridges, right? Do you want to know what, like, it was like Elon Musk manipulating the stock market, mate. Like, literally, people that stopped playing came back to make sure Kirknell never falls. You get what I'm saying? Like, there was like, okay, challenge accepted. Everybody, anything that and everything that we can do to just like prove him wrong, right? I don't think he should be meddling and stuff like this. I don't think he should be reacting like this when people bring up legit questions. That's the way I see it. I know how you see it.
I mean, we've had several years of it now, and I don't think it's ever going to change. I'm going to give you a bit of advice, Geoffrey. If you haven't delved into this type of stuff now, don't bother. Just keep out of it.
Yeah.
Keep your objective.
Okay.
Because this is a dark pit that you'll like. If you were to read into it, your impressions of the guy would probably be a lot different than they are now. But where they are now is where they need to be. So don't do it.
Okay.
Well-
I guess we'll leave it there. He's the man in the arena, not me. All I can say is that personally, I have had to kind of distance myself from the Foxhole community,
And the
other than a
drama.
core group of PressCorps guys that I can really, because I'm kind of served this. I'm not even trying to hype myself up, but I just where it's landed. Just the reality of it is, I kind of in this weird place in the community overall, where I'm a player, but I'm kind of slightly more than that. Again, not me.
No, you are more than that, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just because by the nature of how I intermediate, and I've kind of just had to pull away from whenever I see anything in Foxhole Discord general chat. I just have to pull away and be like, no, don't bother. It's not worth your time. I've actually, the first time I posted anything in Foxhole general chat in the longest time was yesterday or whenever, literally talking about tinnitus. It was just a PSA on, hey, wear proper like equipment because tinnitus is a real thing. Like the most innocuous, the safest thing you could talk about. Anything involving development, anything involving drama, anything involving that, it's like, nah, don't even bother. That's not my game.
You set the mood for the scene, and you're very, very good at that, dude. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I know you don't agree with me, but like, you not only do the job of a community manager really well, you blow other community managers that I've known for other games out of the fucking water with the level of content that you've created over the years, dude. So please continue to do what you do, and remaining objective on this type of thing is the correct move, and you've done a very good job at doing that. So continue to do it. My question, I just want to basically inquire as to how you basically first came up with the idea of PressCorps and how you implemented it.
Yes. So, in terms of how the PressCorps specifically came about, it was actually inspired by what I used to do. In fact, this might have been a good thing to tell you guys beforehand. Can you bring up clips easily, Razor?
Oh yeah, if you link it to me,
Like
it's
YouTube stuff. Yeah.
absolutely.
So before, let me find that. Before I did PressCorps, it was Radio Free Araxis in PlanetSide, which was that was me, and that was me doing the which. So PlanetSide 2, for those who are unaware, it's pretty much just Foxhole on crack, because that game is
It totally is.
it's got the same fundamental. Hey, here's a massive open world, and you can go anywhere at any time theoretically, and it's just a massive ongoing war. And you can pull a tank, you can run to here, you can drive to here, you can shoot at this guy. Yeah, there's certain mechanics there that are kind of limiting to it. Let me gosh darn find it.
Probably, in my opinion, for its time in its golden era. A disagreement with me if you think so, but it was probably the best multiplayer first-person shooter I've ever played.
I agree.
During its golden era, it was amazing. And the only thing that I ever used to do on that game was pilot a galaxy. That was my only role with my organization, and I absolutely loved it. I did it for years, and I was very, very good as a galaxy pilot. But my next question is, what faction did you play? Because that's going to affect my opinion of you, Geoffrey. So answer carefully.
No holds back at all. Shout out to the gentleman of Voodoo Shipping Company on the Emerald server, new conglomerate, NC. Yeah, I know. Are you Vanu? Are you Vanu?
Do you think I'm Vanu? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you think I could fit into that spandex, my friend?
I was just saying, if your voice sounds as sexy as you could look in that spandex, that's why I was making the connection. But
tearing all the way.
Yeah. So what I used to do is I would make these audio files, just to kind of record them, and then literally hold up my phone. That's how I used to do it. Hold up my phone to my microphone and just sit at the warp gate, the no conglomerate warp gate, and just play it. Now, obviously, there's a visual aspect. There would be a visual aspect on YouTube, but it could entirely just be heard. And I would just tell the news. Now, part of it, and here's where I learned lessons from this. Part of it would also be like actual game news. Like here's it would be like TMZ. Here's what the Daybreak game developers said about this mechanic, and then I'm going to quote them as such. And like looking back on that, I cringe at that. That was the worst possible thing, and it was not healthy. It was not good at all. So that's where I learned to just stick to the game. In-game stuff. Stick to the players and keep away from the drama, because that's actually healthy. But I would make this every couple of weeks or so. I think every week at a point in time. And I would just sit there and people would listen. And I just enjoyed doing that. So in real life, I'm also a big, I listen to NPR. I'm that weird guy who like watches Senate committee hearings on C-SPAN on 1.5 speed, because I'm not insane, but I am weird.
Right.
So I'm that weird guy.
There's nothing wrong with that, and you're extremely good at what you do. Something that I would love to see more of, though, in your podcasts, in your general radio things about the game, I'd love to see more in-game adverts for in-game products that the Wardens and Colonials make in their home cities and stuff like that.
That's a good idea.
Awesome. Yeah, we need to hear more like the in-game flavor stuff, because that's where your show really shines. You can really set the mood, and you can world build a lot more than in any other medium. And I'd love to see a lot more of that, like world building, like Warden talcum powder or something.
So I'm gonna play this. Let me know if there's any exact point you want me to go to, or
no. You could just get like the first couple minutes.
Oh, okay.
This is Radio Free Access.
This is so dumb. Can they still hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the cost of long range.
Oh, this is
that All Things Considered theme from NPR still hits though. I love that theme.
Further sign of implants becoming an unbalanced pay-to-win feature.
By the way, I'm using a voice filter. That's what my voice actually sounds like without a voice filter. I'm cheating right now.
Oh, it's fine. You can cheat. We don't judge.
You know what, dude? I never knew that. I was about to say you sound super fucking young in that video, dude.
I am younger because this was years ago, but at the same time, new implement recycler. Yeah, look at this. Look at all that. Oh, I hated this. I hated doing this. Why would anyone do this? Just go to the Reddit. This was such a waste of time.
Someone's got to do it, dude. And I bet you got a lot of people watching you and a lot of people listening to you.
I will say there were loyal listeners, and I do appreciate you wherever you are. Come to Foxhole, and we'll keep on delivering stuff for you. But I actually learned a lot on how to make things, just produce things. I learned it through doing this shtick, and the commercials were so This one was good. I like doing this one. This was a university. This was a college spoof.
Looks very well though. I like it.
This is not my footage.
Mm-hmm.
I did not have a good PC to do this footage.
Sure.
I borrowed it from someone
School
else.
of dying a lot.
Yeah, it's
So you can see kind of how the heart of what I did back then, I translated to what I do now. And just seeing Foxhole being first a much slower paced game where I can actually do that. Just Foxhole, I think, is the kind of the culmination of what PlanetSide 2, what I wanted out of PlanetSide 2, but that game is kind of stagnated.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
You know what really fits the aesthetic of what you do with Foxhole? The time period.
Yes.
So PlanetSide, although it's a great game, it's set in the future. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't really, you did the reporting and stuff like that, but you can't add that, like that cool radio crackle, like the over the top propaganda and adverts and things like that. That's all stuff that's like really unique to Foxhole because it fits that world so well. You know what I mean? So I think that's like Foxhole fits your style a hell of a lot more than PlanetSide. In my opinion.
I think so too. And so people ask me, is there going to be a real visual component to PressCorps in the future, other than what you see on the stream, just the static images? And no, I fell into doing a radio thing specifically as opposed to TV or whatever, because my old computer couldn't handle it. I couldn't even handle it. Couldn't stream Minecraft. I don't know. It was just a really piss poor PC. And I eventually fixed that because I have a job now.
But I don't think you should ever change what you do, because
I don't think so either.
It's very, very close to perfection, dude. So like, just don't. There's no reason to change the thing that you already do. It's just it's just I keep coming back to the thing, and I can't help but think about it, that like, what would Foxhole look like without the PressCorps? You know what I mean? Because like the PressCorps has added so much to the community involvement, and added so much more to the community than, in my opinion, the development team deserve. Because like any other small scale game that with someone willing to do what you do with PressCorps would, it would be like a dream come true to them. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing, that same argument can be made with like large clans and things like that have been like I'm not going to beat around the bush, but like us over the years, it was only like probably a couple of years ago they even acknowledged we existed. You know what I mean? and it's just, I don't know. I just think that Foxhole is incredibly lucky to have the community that it's got, because I'm not confident that it would have got this far without it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, and I hope just speaking on behalf of the PressCorps as a whole, we can't wait to show you what we got coming up for. Hopefully, we can get it up and running by Wednesday, the update. But if not, eventually it'll get there. You can put that on our Trello card. No, I can't spill the beans on it, because
all I'm going to say is more in-game adverts for products and more radio dramas, dude. That's all.
I concur. Radio dramas are fun fact. The longest running, not the longest running, but the longest radio drama we have, 7 episodes, I think 6 or 7 episodes, is Bureau of Occult Warfare, which is kind of like the haunted, occult stuff. But the reason why there's so many is because Commander Rod, shout out to him, he literally does every voice. That's the only reason why.
Like I always come back to this one that I watched. I think it must have been well over a year ago now. But there's one that he did where he's inside a tank with, I think he's roughneck or something like that, and he's inside this tank, and you feel like you're fucking in the tank with him, dude. He's that fucking good at it.
That's all him. That literally, he just recorded that in like an hour, and like edited for several hours more. But it's funny because like Robot Spark, he's in the PressCorps, and we were like, we passed forth, like, scripts, let's do this, do that, and then we're like, well, we have to record this now. We're not that good at doing different voices for different people, and like, So yeah, we're kind of at the scripting stage. We also have to like temper our our expectations on what we can do. So that's a challenge in and of
I
itself.
always,
But we would
I have
love. Mhm.
sorry, go ahead, dude.
No, we'd love to do more, is what we're saying. Ads, radio dramas, yes. Our focus for this update is going to be to get a kind of a robust news reporting system on the air with people with PressCorps reporters actually doing news like you might hear on NPR
I have
with
to
some music in between. But that's what we're really gunning for at the moment.
I have to say, I love the fact that your reporters are so nervous around 82DK. Like
Yeah.
I got held for an interview when we launched the rocket off, I think a few wars ago, and the guy interviewing me was so nervous about what I was going to say about colonials. You know, I would just give some, you know, bog standard speech about how terrible the colonials are and how much we're going to knack them. But the guy the guy was like really nervous about how deep I was going to go with the colonial comments. You know what I mean? It was super fun. And then there was another time where I saw one of your reporters, and he was like he was in the no man's land between the colonials and the wardens, and I just yelled at the top of my voice, "What the fuck is that reporter doing out there? Get him back behind the line before he gets himself killed." He's like, "Oh shit."
Isn't that literally a scene from something? I forget. But yeah,
possibly, yeah. But it was so funny, man. So funny.
Yeah.
Laughing it off.
Amatus has quite the reputation. If you're not aware.
So
well, you built
I
it
have
up. So it's, yeah.
I got one question. So with the new weather system update, is there any plans for the PressCorps to have a weather channel?
Weather channel? Not necessarily. Well, not a dedicated one, or in Discord or anything on stream. But we're definitely going to try and blend it into our normal reporting as much as possible. So this was a unique thing because we were not expecting this at all, the weather system. So because before on the old, before when the stream was running, the weather reports were just flavor. They would literally just an excuse for me to make fun of NPR's marketplace program. This is so niche, but if anyone listens to NPR, Marketplace by Kai Rizdal, I made a character called Ken Rister, and his shtick was that he would do weather. He would also talk casualty numbers as if they were stocks in like the most nonchalant way possible.
That's great. No, I just had a great idea there. Can you imagine if the devs could be persuaded to give you the weather report for the entire war before it happens? So it's actually tactically relevant for you to actually listen to PressCorps to find out what the weather's going to be like over the next few days. We'd like literally have a guy in one of our backline towns. His only job is to sit in a garage and listen to PressCorps for weather reports. That would be funny.
People had DM'd me that. Actually, the moment that came out, people DM'd me about that. And I was like, so here's the thing, right? The one thing that we believe is a core tenet of the PressCorps is that what we do, we don't have any special access to things that the rest of the player base does. Obviously, the exception is the uniform, but that doesn't really give us an advantage, right? That's all flavor. If anything, it makes us a bigger target, we've noticed. But
I get what you're saying, but if you'd have formed last month and this is a new thing that you just started doing, I'd say, yeah, fair enough, you're not entitled to that, dude. But you've been doing it for years. You know what I mean? So as far as I'm concerned, and I would challenge you to find a member of the community that would have a problem with you, with at least you having access to information that could make the show better in some way. You know what I mean? I know that's not the path you want to go down, but I think that I don't think anybody, if you have the conception that people would have a problem with that, I would strongly think that would be the opposite to the case. So if you ever at an impasse about not including something that is super cool but that you don't want to step on that value, I'd advise you to reconsider, because a lot of people hold a lot of faith with the PressCorps. I know you play Colonial all the time, and this is the longest I've ever talked to a Colonial before. You know what I mean? So
I do back and forth. I do play. Well, when I do play, it's almost always scrapping, but it's I have been going back and forth.
You wear the Colonial uniform, and that's good enough for me.
Okay.
Hopefully you don't meet me in a game, because then it would be a different matter.
There you go. But yeah, no, I appreciate it, and we've got a lot of DMs about that. And I think for now, we're going to stick to hurting ourselves and just sending people out on bikes and just like, all right, tell us where the snow ends. All right. Well, that's what we're going to say. That's literally what we're going to do right now, because we're just masochists, and I'm weird.
I mean,
and
if you're masochist, put a reporter with my squad for an op. I'll show him.
also,
the people have mentioned that, which is like, I'd love to attach myself to 82 DK, but I know it's going to be a 6-hour endeavor.
Well, just it's every Saturday, so just stick a reporter with us every Saturday. You know what I mean? And I'm sure they'll have a story at the end of it if they return.
Yeah, let me just say this overall about what's going to come up with the PressCorps coming up in a few days. But we're going to be ambitious, but we're going to mainly focus on just generally being on the air and reporting, and we're going to see what we can do. If we find ourselves bored and we can do more, absolutely. If we find ourselves overwhelmed, then that's why we did it. So yeah, we'll see. We have some kind of special things coming up in terms of how people can access things, maybe in a more round the clock fashion or more often, so that things aren't bottlenecked by me. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, when we know we can do it. But for now, yeah, we're going to be focusing on just being on the air, providing something cool to listen to for truck drivers. That was actually the reason why I did the radio specifically. So before, the PressCorps shtick for the longest time was just, put it on YouTube, just run around pretending to be a reporter. But the radio came about specifically when I found myself listening to, because I'm a jazz musician as well, and I just like listening to the music that I actually play.
Okay.
And so that's actually what I listened to. So making the radio, if anything, was kind of self-serving to a degree too, of just, hey, how cool would it be if we had Foxhole commercial or like Seavish and Visayan commercials in between.
Have you never thought about
that would be something for scrappers, for truck drivers, for people who are just kind of guarding the line. We might see a lot more of that too now with the weather system and people huddling around fires.
You know, I'd love to see like a buildable radio in game that like plays.
We've gotten a lot of that.
Plays the live streaming game like over the radio crackling and stuff.
I mean, we already have like the logistics channel. It's mostly has a bot in there that is somehow tuned on I don't know exactly. I think there's some bots that can pick up streams from Twitch, and it's just like you'll find people scrapping and just listening to the stream through a Discord bot. I've stumbled into that a lot of the times if you go in Logi.
I just want to put it out there though, Geoffrey. When you send one of your reporters to 82DK, you need to have a stern chat with them about what they say in our presence. You know, because neutrality doesn't really, go very far with 82DK. So if they start,
it's not a thing.
Yeah,
I think that's a miscommunication. I think on my part, because we in the PressCorps have to be neutral. However, when we report on you guys, you can be as unneutral as you want to, short of like saying horrible, like bad words on the, but short of that. But you can be like, colonials are trash. Colonials, you can go die in a fire. Like that's cool. Like that's just you guys role playing, same as us.
Exactly.
A lot of people have difficulties.
A lot of people have difficulties figuring out that I'm like obviously role playing. You know what I mean? Like I don't say non-essential personnel in real life, do I? You know what I mean?
I remember that one.
Yeah, everyone remembers that one, dude. But it's I just think that if they could, they need to be fanatical when they're around us, if just for their own safety more than anything. So just put it out there.
Nah, it's all in good fun. That's the most.
Yeah, when we talk about regiment interaction, that's definitely something that we'll need to talk about and kind of like embedding ourselves in.
Yeah,
that's the whole. I've kind of had to like teach. So first of all, I'm not a journalist, in case that wasn't readily apparent by how many times I say it. But I have studied radio, and I used to work at my college's radio station, and I've taken some journalism quote unquote classes, but teaching that aspect too has been has been fun for a lot of people in just terms of learning. Hey, who, what, when, where, why, how. That's how you get it
it
forward.
just adds another level that these guys need to think about. You know what I mean? Because it's part of the fun for them as well. If they're going out there seeking a story, they've got to know how to treat the individual regiments with their, traditions and stuff like that. Especially when it comes to 82 DK, because the last guy that you sent, he got chased away by my men with bayonets.
Jesus Christ.
That's good. That's pretty good. Oh boy.
On that very positive note, I think we've been going for a while now.
We certainly have.
I think we should repeat this very soonish, but start to slowly wrap it up so we let people sleep at least on the EU timeline.
Yeah. Well, Geoffrey, it's been a pleasure having you on the stream, and I hope you return at some point in the future, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I think Foxhole community is better with a No Man's Land live podcast, and I hope other regiments start sharing their thoughts on this format as well, particularly a colonial one. Not that you guys are so Warden loyalist that it affects how you talk about the game, and you can't remove yourselves from that. Opposite of that.
No. I mean, yeah. When we talk about the game, I always try and
I've
keep
noticed
it
that.
center line. Yeah.
And I appreciate that because it's very important. But I do hope to see one from the colonials, just so we can get that kind of point of view as well, particularly when we get into like faction specific things. Just to see how that plays out. But I love the format, and I love listening to you guys. And hopefully we'll make this the first of many more.
We started this whole podcast in hopes of other people being comfortable, doing the exact same thing we're doing and speaking their mind instead of just,
that was pretty much the reason we started it, wasn't it?
So, and I guess another inspiration was you yourself, Geoffrey. So again, thank you for attending today, and hopefully we get some more interactions with you as well.
Thank you.
Right, guys. I think that was a great sim overall. I'll make sure to invite Geoffrey over very soon, so we get to talk about all of these changes you're going to implement in PressCorps. I'm actually excited because I know a lot of our guys follow you religiously on, like I said, when they scrap and stuff. So I think there's going to be a lot of hype around our clan, around anything new coming from you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, Dark, you want to set the mood for the outro here?
Well, I mean, nothing much to say other than artillery is coming and it's not going to hit anything. So
you can stay in the foxhole?
Stay in your bunkers and get the BMATs out.
How about the grenades, though? Did you hear? Because like colonials are getting these explosive grenades, sort of.
Let's not even start with that. Okay, it's like they took the Howie effect and they threw it into a grenade. It's like, oh man. Have you seen the stick grenade that the colonials have?
All I will say is any army that bears the name of Callahan cannot be defeated. At least it's that.
Just so you get the meme here, Geoffrey, we generally go for the anti-stay in the foxholes. We're like, no, run out of those foxholes. Yeah. So that's a sort of our thing, just to be, just in good fun. Right. I've been taking this way too long. So goodbye, guys. I hope you tune again next time. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Mm-hmm.